said that this was a big sac, the parietal peritoneum, and then from the back organs entered into it to have a layer closely adherent to it, and that became the visceral peritoneum. We are going to now see about this fold which is connecting the parietal peritoneum with the visceral peritoneum. This fold, we already said, it contains blood vessels and it contains maybe nerves, neurovascular bundles which are going to pass through. Okay, what are you going to call these folds? Anatomy terminology is very important. You just have to put the prefix meso. Very often it works, in most of the places it works. So if you're going to say, imagine this viscera is the small intestine. Okay, you know that intestine is enteron. Okay, so when you say what is the fold which is suspending the small intestine, you're going to call it meso, then enteron, mesenteron or mesentery. Okay, you call it as mesentery. Okay, so that is the name of the fold which is suspending the small intestine. How about the colon? If this is a colon, what would you call it? Mesocolon. Are you clear? So this is how you have the terminologies of the folds that are connecting the organ covered by visceral peritoneum with the parietal peritoneum. Okay, there is another terminology. If this is a visceral organ which is suspended by a long fold, you have a long fold here, and this is within the parietal peritoneum. This thing can move easily within the parietal. It can move when you are moving according to the movement of the body. This can also move easily, okay, because it has a fold behind it. Okay, so these kind of viscera which are suspended by quite a bit of a fold and are quite movable inside, seen within, you can see that they are directly inside the parietal peritoneum. They are called as intraperitoneal organs. Okay, they are called as intraperitoneal organs. Okay, we'll come to see which all are the intraperitoneal organs. Rather than having this kind of a fold, just imagine this is the parietal peritoneum. I have an organ behind it. It is just touching the posterior aspect, and I can see it through this one, but it is not pushing and making a fold there. It's just lying right behind the parietal peritoneum. Behind the parietal peritoneum. That means it is retroperitoneal. So those organs you are going to call it retroperitoneal organs. Okay. There are a few organs which are somewhere in between this completely behind and completely inside. That is, a few organs they are doubting, should I enter or should I not? Okay, so they slightly entered it. Okay, so they don't have much of a fold, they are not so mobile, but a bit of mobility may be possible. These are, you call them, they are partially peritoneal. Okay, partially intraperitoneal. So you have completely intraperitoneal, retroperitoneal, partially intraperitoneal. Okay, now there are some organs also which initially they were completely inside, then they saw, no, I don't feel it is good staying inside, I am going to go outside. Okay, so they cannot just go back like that, rather the whole fold will come down to and touch the parietal peritoneum. It entered, the organ entered, then it folded like this, that is, it bent like this, and it is touching the parietal peritoneum. Okay, you get this kind of an appearance also. Not that it was outside, it's remaining outside, not that it is completely inside. It went inside and then it came and touched the wall to remain close to the wall. So these kind of appearances are there. For the time being, it is important that you know which are the intraperitoneal organs, which are the retroperitoneal organs, and at least one or two examples of partially intraperitoneal. Okay, easy, it's very easy. The thing is, you know about the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, you have learned about the gastrointestinal tract, from the oral cavity to the esophagus, and then you went to the stomach, and then the duodenum, small intestine, the cecum with the appendix, large intestine, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and then the rectum and anal canal. Okay, so you remember this setup. So what we have to remember here is you go alternately. Okay, One will be intraperitoneal, next is retroperitoneal. Then we have intraperitoneal, then retroperitoneal. Just go alternatively and everything will be correct. The first one which you start should be correct. Then otherwise, if you start with the wrong one, everything goes wrong. Okay. So just remember it like this. Stomach, how is it? We are not considering the esophagus because esophagus just maybe a few centimeters alone is within the abdominal cavity. The remaining is in the thorax. Okay, so we'll start with the stomach. You have seen, you remember in your dissection that the stomach, while we dissected, it was something that could freely move inside the abdominal cavity. Freely move inside the abdominal cavity means it is intraperitoneal. Okay, if the stomach is intraperitoneal, what happens to the duodenum? Duodenum becomes retroperitoneal. Then what is the next one? Jejunum ileum. That together you are going to call it as intraperitoneal, along with the cecum also. Okay, jejunum, ileum and cecum, these are intraperitoneal. How about the ascending colon? Ascending colon is what I told you before. If you look at it, you remember the paracolic gutter and all, you could move it but not move it so much. Okay, so that is partially peritoneal, or some books give it as retroperitoneal. You can't say it exactly retroperitoneal. It is within the peritoneum but not so movable. Transverse colon, it could move very well, so it is intraperitoneal. Descending colon, again similar to your ascending colon. Then rectum and anal, that again it is intraperitoneal. So are you clear? You go alternatively. So the stomach, intra, duodenum, jejunum, ileum and appendix, cecum, that is again intra. Ascending colon, almost retro. Transverse colon, intra. Descending colon, retro. Your rectum and anal canal, intra. Are you clear? So you just have to go alternatively. You will get which all are the retroperitoneal and intraperitoneal organs. If you are asked an example for retroperitoneal organ, the first answer shouldn't be your ascending colon and descending colon, because that's not typical. So what would you want to say? You could say duodenum. And what is attached to your duodenum? Here you have an organ, that is your pancreas. So those two are retroperitoneal, definitely retroperitoneal. Then again you have another organ which you know, which is there in your lumbar region, as you have the kidney, the ureter. Okay, these are also, and the suprarenal above the kidney, all these are again retroperitoneal, typical examples of retroperitoneal organs. Now, if you want to be more specific, is the entire duodenum retroperitoneal? If you remember in the class of duodenum, I told you the first part and the last part, that is the beginning of the first part and the end of the last part of the duodenum, that is also intraperitoneal. Only the remaining majority of the duodenum is retroperitoneal, but the just beginning and the end, that is intraperitoneal. Okay, so this is just about what is retroperitoneal, what is intraperitoneal.